Ethan had always believed in routine. Wake up early, get Oliver ready for school, head to work, come home, and repeat. It wasn't thrilling, but it was steady, predictable, safe. Until Claire walked into their lives. She was Oliver's new math tutor, recommended by a friend. Young, intelligent, and kind, she had an easy way of explaining things that made learning feel effortless. Oliver liked her. Laura trusted her. But Ethan noticed her in a way he shouldn't have. At first, it was nothing. Polite smiles, small talk at the door. But slowly, things shifted. He started coming home earlier just to catch the last few minutes of their lessons. He found himself listening to the sound of her laughter, watching the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was deep in thought. One evening, after Oliver had finished his session and run upstairs, Claire lingered in the kitchen, flipping through her notes. "You're always working," she said, glancing at his laptop. Ethan smirked. "Comes with the job." She studied him for a moment. "And do you ever slow down?" Her words hung in the air, heavier than they should have been. He hesitated before answering. "Not really." "That's a shame," she murmured. "You seem like someone who used to enjoy life more." Her voice was soft, almost wistful. Ethan felt something stir inside him, something dangerous. He had spent so long being the dependable husband, the responsible father, that he couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at him as just a man. A clap of thunder outside made them both glance toward the window. Rain poured against the glass, relentless. "You should wait it out," Ethan said. Claire hesitated, then nodded. Just for a bit. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable, but it was charged. When he handed her a glass of water, their fingers brushed. Neither of them pulled away. She tilted her head. "You know, you don't talk much about yourself. There's not much to tell." "I don't believe that." He let out a short laugh. "And you? What do you enjoy?" She shrugged. "Travel. Books. Late-night conversations that mean something." Ethan felt that pull again, like an invisible thread tying them together. Claire checked the time and sighed. "I should go." He walked her to the door, his heart pounding. She reached for the handle but hesitated, turning back slightly. "Good night, Ethan." Her voice was softer, uncertain. He nodded. "Good night, Claire." As the door closed behind her, he leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. He knew this wasn't just a passing thought anymore. It was something real, something dangerous. And he wasn't sure he wanted to stop it. Ethan sat in his car outside the office, gripping the steering wheel. His mind wasn't on work, and it hadn't been for weeks. Every thought, every moment of quiet, led back to Claire. The way she looked at him when she thought no one was watching. The way her voice softened when they spoke alone. The silent pull neither of them acknowledged, but never resisted. That evening, Laura was out with friends, and Oliver had fallen asleep early. Claire arrived for his lesson as usual, but this time, there was no one else around. She hesitated in the doorway. "Are you sure it's okay for me to be here?" Ethan nodded. Oliver wanted to study before bed. He's already asleep. She stepped inside, setting her books down, but neither moved toward the table. The usual structure of the evening was gone, replaced by something heavier, something neither of them wanted to define. "I was thinking of leaving town," Claire said suddenly. "Maybe moving somewhere new." Ethan's chest tightened. "Why?" She shrugged, avoiding his gaze. "Fresh start." The room felt smaller. The air, heavier. He took a step closer, drawn to her in a way he couldn't rationalize anymore. "You don't have to leave." Her eyes met his, searching, conflicted. "Ethan." He knew she was right to hesitate. He had a life, a family, a home filled with love he had taken for granted. But right now, none of that felt as real as the woman standing inches away, looking at him like he was something more than just a husband and a father. She exhaled sharply, shaking her head, but she didn't move away. The silence between them stretched until it was unbearable. Then she spoke, barely above a whisper. "Tell me to go." Ethan didn't. He couldn't. Her fingers brushed against his, deliberate this time. His hand closed over hers instinctively, their breath mingling in the stillness. The world outside ceased to exist. A loud creak from upstairs shattered the moment. They jumped apart as if burned. Ethan turned toward the staircase, his pulse hammering. Oliver stirred in his bed but didn't wake. Claire stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself. "I should go," she whispered, voice shaking. He swallowed hard. "Yeah." This time, when she reached for the door, she didn't hesitate. And when it closed behind her, Ethan felt something inside him break. He had stepped too close to the edge. And now, there was no undoing what had almost happened. Ethan sat in the dim glow of the kitchen, staring at his untouched drink. The silence in the house felt different now, heavier, filled with something unspoken. Claire was gone, and he knew it was for the best. But the weight in his chest told him that walking away from something before it fully happened didn't erase the fact that it almost did. Laura walked in, rubbing her eyes. "You're up late." He forced a smile. "Couldn't sleep." She sat across from him, studying him the way she used to when they first met, like she could see through him. "You've been distant." His grip tightened around the glass. "Just work stress." Laura sighed. "Ethan, I know when something's wrong. And I know when you're not telling me something." His pulse quickened. She didn't know. She couldn't. But the way she looked at him made him realize how much he had been drifting. "I miss us," she admitted softly. "I miss talking to you, laughing with you. Lately, it feels like we're just here." A lump formed in his throat. He had been so caught up in what was missing that he hadn't seen what was still there. Laura wasn't perfect, their marriage wasn't perfect, but she was the woman who had stood by him for years. And somewhere along the way, he had stopped trying. He reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I miss us too." Her eyes searched his, looking for sincerity. He gave it to her, all of it. Because for the first time in weeks, he knew exactly where he needed to be. The next day, he found Oliver at the dining table, flipping through his math book without enthusiasm. "Miss Claire's not coming back?" he asked. Ethan hesitated before shaking his head. "No, buddy." She had to move on. Oliver nodded, disappointed but accepting. Ethan ruffled his hair, grabbing a chair. "How about I help you instead?" Oliver grinned. "You're not as good as her." Ethan chuckled. "Probably not. But I'll try." Later that evening, he checked his phone, reading the last message Claire had sent. "Take care of yourself, Ethan." No explanation. No goodbye. Just an understanding that some lines, once approached, could never be erased. He deleted the message. Then he turned to Laura, who was setting the table, humming softly. He walked over and wrapped his arms around her. She laughed, surprised. "What's this for?" "Just, for us," he murmured. She leaned into him, and for the first time in a long time, Ethan felt like he had made the right choice.